It started in the quiet, just off stage. No lights, no music. Just the low hum of production chatter, and a man standing alone, holding something old and worn. Jonathan Roumie, known to millions as Jesus from The Chosen, had a leather-bound Bible in his hand, not for show, not for the cameras. He wasn't there to make a statement. He was there because he felt led. Ellen was finishing her monologue. Laughs echoed from the audience. Her smile was sharp as ever, but those who knew her knew that smile had started to falter behind the scenes. There were rumors about tension, about exhaustion, and maybe something else. When Jonathan stepped into the green room earlier, the mood had changed. Quiet glances, soft murmurs. He carried a calm with him, the kind that made you stop mid-sentence. Not religious in the loud, scripted way people often are. He was different. He asked a staffer if he could speak to Ellen before the segment. Just for a moment. The request wasn't usual, but it wasn't refused. So when she finally came off stage, half laughing, half sighing, ready for makeup, touch-ups, and cue cards, she saw him, standing calmly, holding that book like it was something alive. She raised an eyebrow. Jonathan, right? He nodded. Hi, Ellen. Thanks for having me. She smiled. Of course. Big fan favorite. People love you. He took a breath, held out the Bible. I brought you something. It's helped me through a lot. I thought, maybe it might mean something to you. Her smile paused, just slightly. She looked at the Bible, then at him, then back at the book. He didn't push. He just waited. I'm not really churchy, she said with a chuckle. But it didn't feel real. I didn't bring it for church, he replied. I brought it for peace. Her lips pressed together. The staff around them grew awkwardly still, unsure whether to step in or step away. That book, she said slowly, was used to tell me I was broken. That God didn't love me. Jonathan nodded, gently. I'm sorry that happened to you. She stared at him. He continued. But that's not who he is. Not the God I know. Not the Jesus I follow. There was a long pause. She looked at the book again, then turned away. You want to give me a Bible backstage, she muttered. Why? Because you matter, he said. Those two words stopped her. She didn't take the book. Not yet. But she didn't walk away either. They went through the interview, smiles, questions, about The Chosen, about faith, about Hollywood. The audience clapped. Ellen made a few light jabs about religion, softened with charm. Jonathan didn't push. He laughed when it was time to laugh, listened when it was time to listen. But after the cameras stopped, she found him again. He was sitting on the edge of the couch, leafing through the Bible. You ever doubt any of it? She asked. He looked up. All the time. But I always come back. She sat next to him. I don't. I walked away and never looked back. Why? Because when I needed love, I got condemnation. When I needed kindness, I got silence. I was told God was ashamed of me. Jonathan was quiet. I'm sorry, he said again. She answered quickly. It's just the truth. He opened the Bible, flipped to John 8, held it up without pushing it into her hands. Read this sometime, he said. It's about a woman they wanted to stone. Ellen smirked. Great. Misogyny and violence. Just what I need. Jesus didn't throw the stone, he said. She looked at the page, skimmed the words. She didn't want to care, but something about it felt familiar, haunting. Do you think he would have stood up for someone like me? She asked. I think he already has, Jonathan replied. She closed her eyes. You're different from the ones I knew. He nodded. So was he. A week later, Jonathan got a letter, no return address. Just one card. Inside, written in Ellen's familiar, bold handwriting, it said, I've been reading. Just a little. Sometimes it hurts, but I'm still reading. Don't expect a miracle, but thank you. There was a sticky note attached to the page of Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. No signature. Just a drawing of a small heart. He never mentioned it publicly. Never told the story in interviews, because some things are sacred. But those around Ellen noticed something. She wasn't softer, she was stronger, calmer, like something in her had stopped fighting so hard. Months passed, her show ended. The goodbye episode was full of hugs, tears, and memories. No one knew the real goodbye had happened weeks earlier. With a Bible in a quiet room, Jonathan kept the letter, folded neatly in the back of his Bible. He said it reminded him that no one is too far gone. That sometimes all it takes is one gesture, one act of courage. Not to preach, not to convert. Just to love. And sometimes, that's enough. Because the truth is, Ellen didn't need a sermon. She didn't need a debate. She needed someone who would hand her grace without a string attached. And Jonathan did just that. Maybe she's still reading that Bible. Maybe she set it down. Maybe she only picked it up once. But for that one moment, in a space no one else saw, something broke open. And it wasn't a breakdown. It was a beginning. The kind of beginning that doesn't need a headline or a post dot. It just needs a heart dot. One that's tired. One that's ready. One that, despite everything, still dares to believe that maybe, just maybe, God hasn't given up. Not on her dot. Not on any of us. Rewind just a few days before the taping. Inside Ellen's production offices, the atmosphere was tense. The ratings weren't what they used to be. The media had been relentless. The crew felt the weight of it, all like they were holding up a collapsing stage, with nothing but duct tape and coffee. One of the producers had brought up the idea of booking Jonathan Roumie. Why him? Ellen asked casually, sipping her drink. Isn't he the Jesus guy? He's huge right now, the producer replied. Not just with Christians. There's something different about him. People listen. She didn't say no, but something in her face shifted like an old door creaking open. Just a crack. She didn't know why she said yes. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something deeper. She went home that night and watched an episode of The Chosen. Just one. Just enough dot. And when it ended, she sat there, quiet. Her eyes didn't move from the screen. Not for a long time. The next morning, she walked into the studio and said, "Let's do it. Book him." Backstage, the day of filming, the tension was subtle but real. Ellen wore her usual sharp look, but underneath the surface, something churned. The Bible Jonathan had handed her earlier was still sitting on the dressing table. She'd touched it once, just with her fingertips, then pulled away like it burned. She hadn't held a Bible since she was 17. That was the year everything changed. She'd come out to her family. She'd come out to her youth pastor, and they all responded with verses that cut, verses that stayed lodged in her chest like glass. So now, standing on set, just minutes before filming, she kept stealing glances at that book. Jonathan, meanwhile, waited quietly. He didn't pace, didn't scroll his phone, just sat, peaceful, like he wasn't afraid of the silence. Finally, Ellen walked over. "You always carry that with you?" she asked, pointing to the Bible. He looked up and smiled. "Yeah, it's kind of my anchor." She sat on the edge of the table, crossed her arms. "Why bring it here? You know who I am. I brought it because of who you are." That answer stopped her. She didn't respond. She just stared at him. "You think I need saving?" she asked, after a long pause. "No," he said softly. "I think you need to know you're already loved." Something in her flinched. "I don't think God's love is something I qualify for," she whispered. Jonathan stood up slowly. He picked up the Bible, opened to a page, and handed it to her. She didn't take it yet, but she looked down. It was the story of the prodigal son. "You know this one?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "Yeah, the kid who runs away and the dad throws a party when he comes back." "People think it's about the son," Jonathan said, "but it's about the father." She looked up. "What do you mean?" "He never stopped watching the road." She blinked fast, swallowed. "Well, my dad stopped watching. My church stopped watching." He gently replied. He didn't. For the first time, she didn't fire back with sarcasm. Her voice went quiet. "You really believe he still cares about me?" "I think he never stopped." Silence again. Long, thick dot. Then a producer peeked in. 2 minutes to camera. Ellen nodded, wiping the corner of her eye. Jonathan smiled, stepping back. "I'll be there when you're ready." She didn't answer, but her fingers grazed the Bible again. The show went on. Bright lights, loud laughter. Ellen cracked a joke about Jonathan's beard, called him Hot Jesus. The audience roared. Jonathan laughed too. He could play along. But between the jokes, he told a story about being broke, about being alone, about crying out to God one night, when he didn't think he could keep going. "I didn't get a lightning bolt," he told the audience. "Just a whisper, a sense that I wasn't forgotten." The audience grew still. And Ellen, she didn't smile that time, because part of her knew exactly what he meant. She just hadn't felt that whisper in years. When the segment ended, applause thundered. Hugs were exchanged. Ellen gave a signature wave to the camera, but as they walked off stage, she leaned in close to Jonathan and whispered, "That thing you said, about not being forgotten. Yeah, I needed to hear that." He nodded. "We all do." Back in her dressing room, she stared at the Bible again. This time she picked it up, held it, not like a weapon, not like a threat, like a question. And for the first time in decades, she wasn't afraid of the answer. The cameras stopped rolling, but Ellen didn't leave the stage. She lingered. Audience gone. Lights dimmed. Most of the crew had scattered, chatting, wrapping cables. Packing up, Jonathan sat quietly in the wings. Alone, again with the Bible on his lap. She walked toward him. No cameras this time, no lines. Just her. "You didn't come here just to do the interview," she said. "No," he replied. "I came for you." She crossed her arms, half defensive, half afraid of what might spill out. "I don't know what to do with this," she said, motioning toward the Bible. "I don't even know if I want to." "You don't have to do anything," he said. "Just don't run from it." Her eyes fell to the floor. "I've been running my whole life," she whispered. He nodded. "Me too, until I collapsed." She looked up. "Collapsed?" "I had nothing left," Jonathan said. "No work, no peace. I couldn't sleep. I cried in my car most nights. But the worst part wasn't the pain. It was the silence. It felt like God had just turned his face." Her expression softened. "I know that silence," she said. "It's loud. It eats at you." He nodded. "But one night, I yelled at God. Really yelled. I told him I was done. And all I got back was this stillness. But it wasn't empty. It was like something sat with me, not fixing anything, just being there." Ellen sat on the edge of the stage. "I used to pray," she said, "when I was little. Every night I'd pray for my family, for school. I even prayed to be funny." Jonathan smiled. "Guess that one God answered." She laughed real this time. "But then it faded. I stopped praying after my mom told me the church wouldn't let me sing anymore. Said it'd be confusing." Jonathan looked at her. "That's not God's voice. That was theirs." "I know," she said. "But it sounded like him." She turned to face him. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you ever feel like, even if you tried to go back, you wouldn't know how?" Jonathan nodded slowly. "Yeah, sometimes. But I don't think it's about going back. I think it's about letting him catch up to you." She was quiet again. Then something inside cracked. Not loudly, not with drama. Just a soft, sudden shift. She said, "I read the story you left open." Jonathan didn't speak. "The prodigal son," she continued. "I forgot how it ended. The dad running out to him, hugging him before he said a word." He smiled gently. "Yeah, I always thought if I ever went back, he'd be waiting with a lecture." "No," Jonathan said. "He'd run." Ellen's voice caught in her throat. "Why does that hurt so much to hear?" "Because deep down," he said, "you've always hoped it was true." She nodded slowly. The tears were there, but she blinked them away. Then she reached into her jacket, pulled out the Bible. She held it out. "I don't know what to do with this," she repeated. "But I don't want to give it back either." "Don't," he said. "Just keep it close." She held it to her chest. "I still don't believe everything in it," she admitted. "You don't have to yet." "But I want to," she said, her voice trembling. "And that scares me." Jonathan stood. "Ellen," he said, "courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward even when it's still there." She stood too, their eyes locked. "Do you think he still sees me?" she asked. Jonathan didn't hesitate. "I think he never stopped." There was nothing more to say. She stepped forward, hugged him tight. No cameras, no soundbite, just something real. And when they let go, something between them had changed. She walked out quietly. He watched her leave, and neither of them would ever forget what passed between them. In that empty studio, something invisible, but eternal. 3 weeks later, a small, unmarked envelope arrived at Jonathan Roumie's doorstep. There was no return address, no logo, just his name, handwritten in black ink. Inside was a single piece of thick, cream-colored paper. No long letter. No dramatic confession. Just a short message. 5 words. "I haven't stopped reading yet." Beneath the note, taped gently to the paper, was a torn-out sticky note. On it, a verse. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:8. Jonathan smiled. No cameras. No applause. Just a quiet whisper from God that the seed had taken root. He folded the note and slid it into the back of the same Bible he carried that day. He never told the press. Never posted about it. Because some stories don't belong to the world. They belong to grace. Months passed. Ellen's final season aired. There were smiles, laughter, standing ovations, stories from celebrities, flashbacks from 20 years of daytime television. People saw the same Ellen but different. Softer, slower, sometimes distant, but not cold. Reflective, like someone who had started a private conversation with something or someone they couldn't quite explain. No one knew about the Bible in her dressing room drawer. No one knew that sometimes, between tapings, she'd sit alone and read. No one saw the bookmarks, the little questions she scribbled in the margins with pencil. But it was happening. Bit by bit, page by page. She never made a grand announcement. She never stood on a stage and said, "I believe." But she was listening, she was searching, and that was enough. One afternoon, after the final taping wrapped, she found herself alone in the same dressing room where it all began. She reached for the Bible. One more time, the pages had softened from years. She flipped to a story she'd underlined. Weeks before, the woman caught in adultery, the crowd ready to stone her, and Jesus bending down, writing in the dirt, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone." And one by one, they walked away. Ellen closed the book and whispered out loud, "I never even knew what he was writing. But I think I get it now." She didn't need all the answers. She didn't even need certainty. She just needed to know that she wasn't alone in that dirt. And somehow, single quotes T. Jonathan went on with his life. More interviews, more stories, more people coming to faith. But every time he opened that Bible and saw that letter tucked inside, he remembered the moment, the risk, the silence, the fragile beginning of something holy in a place no one expected. Hollywood, Ellen, and the Bible between them. Faith isn't always a firework. Sometimes it's a whisper in the quiet. Sometimes it's a question scribbled in the margin. Sometimes it's a person who hasn't prayed in decades, picking up a Bible and not putting it down. And sometimes that's the beginning of a story no one will ever hear, except God. He saw it. He sees her. And he's not done. Not with her. Not with you. Not with any of us.